Hey everyone, it's Corey and welcome to my channel Life of Corey, and this is the first video I've ever done in my life. And the reason I'm doing these videos is because every single day, as you can imagine, everyone asks me, what happened? Did you have an accident? So I just saw an opportunity to share my story, share how I broke my neck, and then share how living as a quadriplegic really affected my life. And just a warning, I'm going to be talking about a lot of traumatic stuff here, and it can get overwhelming for people. And I really just want to inspire people. That's the truth. Through my story, if I can inspire someone and show people that when it comes to life, it's not about what happens to you. It's about what you do about what happens that matters. So let's get started. So I was born in South Australia. Both my parents were married at 21, divorced by 22, which is fantastic. And when I say fantastic, I'll explain why. So it was fantastic because in my childhood, with my mum, she lived in the country and my dad lived on the coast. So I had the best of both worlds. And don't get me wrong, I really wanted them to be together, but it would just never work. So living with my mum, we rode horses every single weekend. So I was riding horses with my sister, my stepsisters, and then with my dad living on the coast, we were either snorkeling, fishing, playing rugby, boxing. I raced motocross, but the truth is my passion was surfing. And I was introduced to surfing at the age of 10 by my really good friend Shannon. We're more like brothers, but we are now. He's engaged to my sister. So yeah, he gave me a call one day and said, Corey, I'm picking you up, we're going surfing. And I didn't even know what surfing was, to be quite honest. So he picked me up, took me down the beach. It was cold, it was raining, the waves were terrible. I stood up once and the rest is history. I absolutely fell in love with it. So I fell in love with surfing at the age of 10. And from that moment forward, I was going surfing all the time. And I always had lots of magazines and books and posters on my wall. And I was obsessed with Queensland. I don't even know why or how it came about, but I was obsessed with the Gold Coast and I really, really wanted to live there. And I remember telling all my friends, my family, is like, one day I'm going to live on the Gold Coast. So fast forward a couple of years, I got myself a little girlfriend when I was about 14 or 15. And she lived in Adelaide, but then her and her parents moved to Queensland and they lived in Brisbane and they were living there for a while. She came down to stay with me for a little bit. And then I just remember I just really wanted to live up there. And at the time I wasn't doing well in school at all. Like I just wasn't even going to school. And my dad sat me down and he said, Corey, you got to make a decision, mate. You either got to get a job or you got to stay in school and really apply yourself. And I really just didn't know what to do. So about a week went by and my girlfriend's parents actually gave me a call and said, Corey, we've got this big job coming up in construction. Would you like to move up to Queensland, live with us and work here and live here? And I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. I was like, hell yeah. So then I had to tell my dad and I was a little bit scared about that. So I got my dad, I sat him down and said, look, Dad, I got an opportunity to work and live in Brisbane. Can I go? And to my surprise, he's like, yeah, go for it, because I wasn't doing very well here. So on Australia Day 1994, I jumped on a plane and flew to Brisbane to live with my girlfriend and her parents. And I honestly didn't know the parents at all. They were complete strangers to me. So I moved up there. They took me in. John and Lynette, my girlfriend's parents, treated me like a son, were absolutely amazing. They were so good to me, understanding, caring, and yeah, they just looked after me so well. And on the weekends, we'd go surfing. And it wasn't long before the company got a really big job on the Gold Coast. And I remember this day so well. They're like, Corey, we've got a big job on the Gold Coast. Do you mind if we move down there? And I was like, of course. I'd love to move to the Gold Coast. So we moved to a place called Eleanor, which is in Currumbin. And we moved there and I was living the dream. So I was working, surfing. I was traveling a lot. So I was traveling down to northern New South Wales, up to Noosa. I was just driving around, traveling. And I actually became a team rider. So what that means is that I just got, really cheap surfboards, which was great because I was using a lot of surfboards and my shaper Chook was amazing. He really looked after me. So as a young kid, I was living the dream. It was absolutely amazing. And I think I was about 19, and I actually got knocked out by my surfboard, and for 2 weeks I was in hospital with brain and spinal fluid leaking out my ear, and I didn't have any memory. I didn't even know my name for 3 months after that, but that's another story and another surfing injury. I'll tell that another time. So let's fast forward to 1998. In the beginning of 1998, in January, I went to Bali for a holiday with my girlfriend. I had a fantastic time. Absolutely loved it. Surfed everywhere. It was really, really cool. Then came back. And it was only a few months later, it was that I turned 20. So I just turned 20. And then on the 24th of May, 1998, it was a Sunday, I got a phone call from my boss. And my boss said to me, Corey, tomorrow's a public holiday, I know, but can you please drive to Brisbane and work for me? And I was devastated because I really wanted to go surfing on that public holiday, and now I lost that opportunity. So he was a really good guy, so I said, yep, no problem. I said, where am I driving to? Where's the job site? He said, you'll be working on the extension of the Princess Alexander Spinal Unit in Brisbane. I was like, rightio, no problem. So I jumped in my car at 6 o'clock in the morning, drove from the Gold Coast to Brisbane, worked away. And I remember I was working with this guy, and we're just having a conversation about, all the sports we did, also all the silly stuff we did as, young guys. And he said to me, Corey, have you ever broken a bone in your body? And I remember thinking to myself, nah, never. I've never broken a bone in my body. But I bent down and I touched a piece of wood. And I remember plain as day saying, touch wood, that I never ever break a bone. So what happened is we finished about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and being a surfer, the first thing I thought about was going surfing. So I drove from Brisbane to the Gold Coast to my favourite surf break called D-Bar or Duran-Bar, whatever you want to call it. And I remember pulling up, and the waves weren't that good. It was only about 2 to 3 foot, about a metre high, not the best day. But I was excited. So I got ready, I paddled out there, and I caught a couple of waves. And then I remember sitting on my board, and I saw this wave coming in. So I turned around and I paddled for this wave. And I can remember this wave just so vivid in my imagination right now. So I'm paddling for this wave. I remember looking left and looking right and wondering which way I should take the wave. So I remember looking left and go, wow, that looks really good. So I got to my feet, and I was flying down the wave. I was cruising along the wave, and then the whole wave was about to close out. So the whole wave was about to crash onto the beach. So what I did is, as the wave was crashing, I popped up on top of the wave, floated along the top of the wave, and was going to drop back down. It's called a floater. It's a pretty cool maneuver. I really like doing it. But what happened was, as I popped up onto the wave, and as the wave was crashing, I actually slipped off my board head first. And I was actually in the Superman position. So imagine my arms like this. It's like diving into a swimming pool, you could say. So what happened was, in that diving position, I just hit the sand. My hands hit the sand, my neck hit the sand. As soon as my neck hit the sand, I broke my neck, and I was instantly paralyzed from here down. And I'm just getting a bit emotional as I'm telling this part, so I'm just going to take a second just to get my stuff together, because it's, even nearly 22 years later, it's very traumatic. So just give me a second. I'll get there. So I hit the sand, broke my neck, instantly paralyzed from here down, couldn't move a thing. And I'm floating in the water, and I'm floating in the water face down, and I'm thinking to myself, something's not right here. I knew I couldn't move, and I couldn't lift myself out of the water, so I was freaking out. I just knew I was in really, really big trouble, and it got to the point where I'm laying here face down that I was running out of air, and my lungs were burning. They were burning so much. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is it. I'm going to die. And I'm laying there, my lungs are burning, and I'm like, I just can't hold on any longer. And I remember slowly letting go and just slowly blacking out when a wave rolled me over just enough to get my lips just outside of the water to take in a quick breath like this. and then back down again. And I'm back in the same situation again. Like, my lungs are burning, I'm running out of air. And, you know, they say that when you're drowning, your life flashes before your eyes. And from my experience, I think you know that you're drowning, and you know that you got time before you die to actually reminisce on your life and think about your life. So that's what I did. I started thinking about my life, and I thought about the people in my life, and I thought how good my life was, and I tried to fight again. I was like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to hold on as long as I could. And I was like fighting just to keep my mouth closed and just stop that water coming into my mouth. And then I just got to the point where I couldn't any longer. So I accepted that this is it. I'm going to drown and die right here. So I kind of let go. And just as I let go, a lone Japanese tourist that was walking down the beach grabbed me by the shoulders, pulled me out of the water. I was screaming at him. I was screaming. I was like, get me out of the water, get me out of the water. I was using worse words than that. He couldn't understand a word I was saying. But he understood that I was in a lot of trouble. And I am so grateful every day that that man saved my life. He literally saved my life, right? So what happened was, he grabbed me by the shoulders, pulled me out. I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm gasping for air. And my friend Carolyn, who's a really good surfer and also a nurse, she saw that what was going on, and another guy, they saw what was going on. So they raced over to me. And as soon as she came up to me, she knew that I had had a spinal injury. She knew that I'd broken my neck. So what she did is she held my head and my neck, got the young guy to hold my feet, and laying me on my back, floating me on my back, they used the waves to gently float me to the shore. And apparently the Japanese tourist that saved my life was so freaked out, he ran off. He just ran away. It was very traumatic for him. So I've never got to thank him, but if you see this, thank you. I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. So they used the waves to float me to shore up onto the beach. I don't know how I did this, but I was telling them my girlfriend's phone number so they could call her, because I was so scared and so sure that I was still going to die on the beach. So I'm screaming out the phone number. When they got me on the beach, someone called an ambulance. They ran off. They called my girlfriend. The ambulance rocked up first. They were there, and they were putting oxygen on me, you know, supporting me, keeping me still, so, you know, I didn't do any more damage to my neck or anything like that. And then I remember just laying there, and I just heard this screaming, and it was my girlfriend, and she was just screaming at the top of her lungs, just hysterical, like crying, screaming. So everyone's trying to calm her down. I'm laying there like I thought I was still going to die. And I remember I couldn't feel my legs at all. And it was really bothering me. So I was like, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. And I remember this one guy who's just like standing in the crowd. He's like, yeah, man, you still got legs. They're still there. And I was like, I know I've got legs. I just can't feel them at all. It's not like I was, you know, my legs were bitten off by a shark or anything like that. I knew that didn't happen. But he's like, yeah, man, you still got legs. It's cool. They're still there. And I was like, I just can't feel them. So I think I blacked out then. I totally just blacked out. Yeah, I did. Because I can't remember much from that point onwards. So I blacked out, and I know they took me to the Tweed Heads Hospital, and they did like all MRI scans on my body and stuff like that to see, you know, to confirm that I had a broken neck. And their plan was to put me in a helicopter and fly me to a specialist hospital. So as they're loading me up to go in the helicopter, they told my friends, my family, everyone that rocked up, you know, while I was there in hospital getting the test, they told my family to kiss me goodbye because I'd never make the flight. I was going to die on the way to the hospital. So they put me in the chopper, I'm laying there, and they're actually flying me back to the Princess Alexander Spinal Unit where I'd been working that day. How crazy is that? I've been working there in the morning, working on the extension of the Princess Alexander Spinal Unit, and later that day I was coming back as a patient, and my room overlooked the job site where I'd been working. Like, it's kind of creepy in here. It's just a bit weird. So it was meant to be, obviously. So I remember waking up as they were taking me through the doors into the hospital and seeing my Auntie Lily and Uncle Kevin. And what happened is my dad phoned them. They lived in Brisbane and said, look, Corey's had an accident. Can you go there? And, you know, just so he can see you, you might provide a bit of comfort for him, which it did. So I passed out again. And then I remember waking up. I remember waking up to like this drilling into my skull. So what they were doing was they were drilling into my skull on this side, just above my ear, and this side just above my ear. Because for the next 3 months, I was going to lay flat on my back in spinal traction. That's where they, like I said, they drill holes into here. They put a metal clamp, a contraption to your head with a long string that goes off the end of the bed with the weight of a 10-pound bowling ball. So what happens is the weight and the string stretches your neck so the bones can align and heal over those 3 months. You know, that's why it's called spinal traction. So next 3 months, I was laying there like this. So I passed out again and I was in intensive care on life support. I had machines on top of me, keeping me alive for the next 3 weeks. And I don't remember anything from that time. I was totally out cold. So the 3 weeks of being in intensive care passed. They took the life support machines off me, the ventilators, they took everything off me. And then they were taking me to a general ward where I would spend the next 2.5 months, in spinal traction. So they took me to the ward, they put me in there, and that's when the doctor came in because I was fully conscious. So the doctor came in, he said, Corey, do you know you've had a surfing accident? I'm like, yes. He goes, do you know you hurt yourself? I'm like, yes. And he said, look, Corey, you've had a spinal injury. You've broke your neck at C5, C6. And the chances are that if you don't improve over the next 3 months, you may spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. So that was pretty daunting at the time, but I still didn't quite understand because, like I said, I was laying flat on my back. I didn't have to use my legs. I didn't have to use my arms. I wasn't in a situation to be aware of what was really going on. So yeah, so let's fast forward a couple of weeks. At week 5, I developed something called deep vein thrombosis in my left leg. And the blood clot actually went from my foot all the way up to my hip. And it was pretty scary. You know, the nurses and doctors came in and it was a very scary time for the next 24 hours when they'll put me on blood thinners and, you know, just making sure that I was all right. So I got the deep vein thrombosis. I was laying there. Every couple of weeks, the doctor would come in and just see, you know, they did tests on my reflexes, just see what was going on. And I was still paralyzed from here, from the neck down. Laying there, all I could do was shrug my shoulders, and that was it. So it wasn't looking good. But I was optimistic. I was I honestly thought I was going to walk. And I held on to that hope and that thought that, man, I'm going to walk out of here. And, you know, the doctors actually don't know if you're going to walk or not. They just don't know. Because every spinal cord injury is different. And I'll give you a quick example. There's a young guy, Jacob, 16 years old, in Queensland, was jumping off a jetty. He jumped off a jetty, dived off a jetty, and as he was halfway down to the water, a shark surfaced. He hit that shark with his head and broke his neck in 2 places. Heaps of witnesses saw it. His nickname was Shark Boy in the newspapers and the news. Anyway, so he broke his neck. He was in spinal traction. 3 months later, the guy walks out of there. So the doctors actually don't know whether you're going to walk or not. They just got to play it by ear, and that just takes time. So getting closer towards the end of my 3 months in spinal traction, the doctor came in again. It was only a few weeks out. And he's like, Corey, you know, I can see you can move your arms a little bit now, but you haven't started moving your legs. You haven't, you know, started wiggling your toes too much. He said, it's not looking good. You know, the chances are you're actually going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life because you haven't recovered in this time. So that was pretty daunting and upsetting, and I honestly didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to handle the emotions of it, and I was pretty angry, to be quite honest. So the doctor left the room and my dad came in, and I said, look, Dad, you know, the doctor just told me that I haven't got any movement back, I haven't got any feeling back, you know, in this period of time, and it looks like I'm going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I'm scared, I'm upset, I'm angry. Can you please leave the room, but on your way out, just turn the TV on so I can just watch a bit of TV and, you know, get my head around this. So my dad turned on the TV. It was Channel 10 News. My dad left the room. And as I'm watching the Channel 10 News, there was a news bulletin that 2 young surfers had been killed on the Gold Coast in a car accident. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And I kept watching. And it turns out it was my friend Sean Fanning and Joel Green. They were in a car accident and they were both killed instantly. So I'm laying there and I'm trying to process the fact that I'm 20 years old, I'm never going to walk again, and my 2 friends just got killed in a car accident. It was heavy. I can't even describe the emotions I had. It was horrible, horrible experience. So I'm laying there. Anyway, I wanted to go to their funeral, couldn't go to their funeral. Sean Fanning's brother is world champion Mick Fanning. So I had to process all that information, everything like that. So let's get to the day that the spinal traction comes out. So they undid the screws, they took the spinal traction out, and it was time to go in a wheelchair for the first time in my life. So they put this big sling around me, they got this big machine, they're lifting me out of bed, and that's when reality hit. Because I remember they lifted me up, and I looked at my legs, and my legs were just dangling there. They were just flapping around. And I was like, move, do something. And I couldn't move them, they were just dangling. And then as I looked at them dangling, I looked over at my dad. The look on my dad's face honestly ripped my soul out, ripped my heart out. He was devastated. For the next 2 to 3 years, he honestly couldn't talk, couldn't string a sentence together. He was always by my side, like the rest of my family, my mum, my sister, John and Lynette, my girlfriend. Everyone was there. Everyone was fantastic. But when it came to my dad, it really knocked him really badly. So they lowered me into a wheelchair. You know, I wheeled around a few times. They put me back to bed, and that's when rehab begins. You know, that's when it's time to go to work. So the next day I went into rehab, and that's where you learn to feed yourself, dress yourself, clothe yourself. And it was hard work. It was very hard work. I remember the first time I was getting dressed, they taught me how to dress myself. It took me 45 minutes just to get one sock on. 45 minutes. It took me about 3 hours or more just to put my clothes on, my shorts, my t-shirt, everything like that. So by the time I got dressed, it was time to go back to bed and go to sleep. It was horrible. So in rehab, I also learned how to manage my bladder. You know, every time I need to go to the toilet, I have to catheterize myself. I have to manage my bowels every morning with a bowel routine and an enema. And it's so daunting, like it's just horrible. And I hated hospital, so I wanted to get out of there as quick as possible. So I broke all the records. I got out there really quick, and I still needed a lot of care. And my girlfriend looked after me, my family looked after me. I had a lot of care, and I just wanted to get out of hospital. I hated it. And at that time, I was actually on a huge high. I was on such a high. I was so positive. I was so happy, so excited because I cheated death. And the doctors came in and they warned me and they warned my family, and they're like, Corey, we've seen this before. You know, we're glad that you're happy and everything like this, but you're just super happy. You know, we're scared that you're going to come crashing down. And they were scared that I was going to have something called an anniversary relapse, which means, you know, a year later to the day, it's just going to hit you and you're going to go down like a ton of bricks. So within that year, we ended up moving back to the Gold Coast. I was still happy, super positive, on top of the world. And I remember the day exactly, 25th of May, 1999. We're down the beach, we're down at Kira because we'd moved back to the Gold Coast. And we're sitting down there, and there's this hut that the surfers hang out in at Kira Point. And I'm sitting there, and my girlfriend just looked at me and she's like, "Are you alright?" And as soon as she said that, I knew something was wrong, and I just lost it. I lost it. I had huge anxiety, depression. I freaked out. I actually got taken to hospital because no one knew what to do with me. I just lost it. So I had an anniversary relapse and lost my stuff. So for the next few years, I had heaps of health problems, heaps of anxiety, depression. It was horrible, like really, really bad. So my anxiety and depression was that bad that I used to sit in my unit with my shirt over my face like this all day. In the corner of my house. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. And I definitely didn't want to see the beach or the waves. It broke my heart just seeing people surfing, doing what I love. So dealing with that depression, dealing with that anxiety, it just got to the point where I was honestly thinking about killing myself every day. I hated myself. I hated my life. And I honestly couldn't see a way out of it. So I thought the best way to get out of this is to kill myself. So I wrote a suicide note. I planned how I was going to do it. And then it got to the day I was going to do it. And in the morning I had a shower. And I remember sitting in the shower for like 3 hours. And I'm sitting there. The water's running over my head. And I sat there for, like I said, 3 hours. And I'm thinking, you know what, Corey? Today's the day. Today's the day you either kill yourself or you make a decision that you're going to do the best you can with what you have. And clearly, I took that decision to do my best and be the best that I could be in the situation that I'm in. So what did that take? You know, to go from so low, so sad, so depressed, like this is exactly what it took. Like from that moment, I got out the shower, I jumped straight on the phone and I rang every single psychologist, every single counselor. I was like, man, I need help. I need a lot of help. I was seeing about 5 different psychologists, counselors at the time. I got books. I got books on mindset, mental health. And I started reading and I just devoted my life and my time to reading books on how to feel better, how to be better, how to manage my emotions. Pretty much just how to get through this whole situation. So within that time of depression and getting out of that depression, my girlfriend and I got married. Wasn't the best idea. I'll just tell you that. It wasn't the best situation. It was very hard on my girlfriend. She had to do a lot for me. It was very hard emotionally, physically. It wasn't cool at all. And it just wasn't the best relationship either. So we got married. 12 months later, we're divorced. In that time though, we did move back to Adelaide and during the separation, I moved in with my mum and my sister and I did what I could do, but my mum and my sister actually had to help me with personal care. It was crazy, crazy. We had a lot of good times. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate that my mum and my sister took me in. They were fantastic. I was so lucky that I had such good family support. Of course, my dad still supported me. But it was good to live back in South Australia and be around my friends and do all that. So still battling depression, still battling a lot of things. So what I decided to do is surfing was my life. Like that was my passion and that's all I knew. You know, I was only working to earn money to go surfing, travel the world and everything like that. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do with my life? And I honestly didn't know. So what happened is I was having a conversation with a friend who was going through a really hard time. And I remember just listening and then giving him some advice from my experiences and what I went through. And I remember him just going, Corey, oh my God, that advice is amazing. You've changed my life. And it did. It changed his whole life. And he was super happy, on track. And I thought, wow, you know, maybe I can turn this negativity into something positive. So what can I do? So I started studying. That's all I knew what to do. So I started studying disability, community services, drug and alcohol. I was also doing drugs and alcohol, which is not cool. It didn't help the situation. But I stopped doing that, which I'm very proud of myself. You know, I was drunk, passed out on the kitchen table by 10 o'clock every single morning there for a while. It was shocking. Not a good lifestyle. So I stopped doing drugs and alcohol. That came with another decision. I made the decision just to stop because it wasn't good for me. Like I said, just started studying. And I knew that I just wanted my whole life to revolve around helping people. Turning this pain into something positive, helping people, using my experience to guide people through life. So for the next few years, I just kept studying. I became a youth worker, a youth mentor. I was working for the government, for other organisations. I've been a school support officer working in schools, and at my school that I was working at, on a Thursday they needed a teacher and they asked me to be the teacher. I didn't have any qualifications as a teacher, but I was the teacher and I just acted like I had qualifications. It was pretty funny. So I was the teacher, youth worker. I was also doing a lot of inspirational speaking to schools and corporate companies on mindset, resilience, depression, getting through tough times. And that was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And in the process, I had a few relationships here and there, nothing serious, none of them worked out, but I was happy. I was doing it right. I was really happy and, just doing the best that I can and still learning and growing and seeking help when I needed to, because every now and again I'd have a really hard time, especially getting around, the time of my accident. Every single year I'd go downhill a little bit. And that's pretty much what my life's about. It's just about helping people, serving people, and using my experiences, to help people that really need it out there. And when I was about 33, I turned 33, I absolutely met the love of my life. And that's a fantastic story. And I'm not going to share that today. I'm going to share that another time. You can hear that next time. But I've hoped you enjoyed my story. I hope it inspired you. I hope it gave you maybe a different perception on your life, and maybe you know someone that could really benefit from hearing my story. And if you do know someone that could hear my story, I would really appreciate if you liked, subscribed, and shared this information so we can help people out there. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you for listening. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you.